Your email open rate is 27%. Your competitors is 59%. Here's the thing though. You both have the same list size and you're both in the same product category. The difference isn't their offer. It's that their subject lines leave a question the brain refuses to file away unanswered. That's not copywriting instinct. That's neuroscience. Today we're breaking down the Zeigarnik Effect. What it is, the brands that have built entire growth strategies around it, what the research says about the Zeigarnik Effect, and 3 marketing moves you can put to work immediately to keep buyers engaged, coming back, and converting. The Zeigarnik Effect is a psychological phenomenon where incomplete tasks occupy more mental bandwidth than completed ones. People remember interrupted or unfinished things better, and they feel a pull to close them out. It's evolutionary. The human brain is a task manager that never shuts down. Unresolved things stay flagged as active. Completed things get filed away. And that ancient filing system doesn't distinguish between did I finish that presentation and did I finish that email sequence. An open loop is an open loop. The term comes from the Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who documented this in the 1920s after noticing that waitstaff in a Vienna cafe could perfectly recall every open order, but the moment the bill was paid, they forgot the table completely. That observation became one of the most cited studies in psychology. First, let's talk about Netflix. As you probably already know, Netflix popularized the autoplay countdown. The moment an episode ends, a new one starts in 15 seconds. That's not a convenience feature. That's a deliberate open loop. The story isn't finished, and the brain won't let it go. In fact, you probably find yourself hitting the next episode button because you can't even wait 15 seconds. What you might not know if you haven't dug into the data is that Netflix reported that autoplay increased viewing time so significantly that they later tested extended countdown delays specifically to reduce overconsumption during health initiatives. They had to dial back a tool that was working too well. When your retention mechanism becomes a public health concern, that's the Zeigarnik Effect in full strength. Now let's talk about YouTube creators. The best performing YouTube creators open with something like this. I'm going to show you exactly how I grew this channel to 1 million subscribers. But first, let me tell you what almost made me quit. That detour isn't tangential. It's engineered. The main promise is held just out of reach, and the brain physically cannot leave an unresolved question alone. To put it into perspective, according to the 2025 State of YouTube Audience Retention, videos that clearly state their value proposition within the first 15 seconds see an 18% higher retention rate at the 1 minute mark. That gap, the setup before the payoff, is doing the work. The top creators aren't doing this by instinct. They're doing it by psychological design. Now let's move into e-commerce and talk abandoned cart emails. This is where it gets commercially tangible for almost every marketer. The "you left something behind" email exists entirely because of the Zeigarnik Effect. The cart is an incomplete transaction. The buyer's brain is already partially committed. The open loop stays active, and recovery rates on abandoned cart sequences typically run between 5 and 15% of abandoned revenue, with some high-intent verticals recovering even more through multi-touch sequences. That's not persuasion from scratch. It's a loop closure. The buyer already wanted it enough to put it in their cart. Your job is to nudge their brain that the loop is still open and they should complete the transaction. Now let's jump into the research that shows how this works. In 1927, Bluma Zeigarnik, working in Berlin under psychologist Kurt Lenwin, asked participants to complete a series of tasks. Some were interrupted before they could finish. Others were allowed to complete them. When recalled later, the interrupted tasks were remembered roughly twice as well as the completed ones. The open loop stayed active. The closed ones were filed away and forgotten. What's particularly useful for us marketers is a follow-up study by Zeigarnik's colleague Maria Ovsiankina, who found that when people were interrupted mid-task, they spontaneously resumed it when given the opportunity, even without being asked. No prompt, no reminder. The incomplete state itself was enough to drive them back. Think for a second what that means for a buyer who abandoned a cart, paused an onboarding flow, or left a proposal unopened. The loop is still running. The pull to close it doesn't go away. It just waits for a nudge. Here's 3 ways to put the Zeigarnik Effect to work for your marketing. First, engineer the open loop in your content. Every piece of content you produce, email, video, social ads, should open a loop before it closes one. Lead with the tension, not the answer. Not introducing our new onboarding feature. Instead, use most teams lose 40% of new users in the first week, and it's almost never the product. One of those gets opened, the other ones get filed away or skipped over. The brain cannot ignore an unresolved question. Build that structure into your templates, your subject lines, your video intros. The open loop is the most repeatable, high-performance format in content marketing, and almost nobody is applying it systematically. Your second marketing move? Build serialized touchpoints instead of one-shot campaigns. Most marketers treat their email sequences and content calendars like standalone messages, each one complete, each one trying to close the deal in isolation. Flip that model. Think of your nurture sequences as serialized content where each message opens something the next one closes. The buyer who's wondering, what comes next, is a buyer who hasn't tuned out. That open loop is your greatest retention asset, and it costs nothing to build it into your calendar. Chapter your campaigns, tease forward, and make each touch point feel part of something unfinished. Your third marketing move? Use progress mechanics to manufacture incompleteness. Things like profile completeness bars on SaaS platforms, progress indicators in onboarding sequences. Use copy like, you're 60% of the way to unlocking and filling your benefit. When buyers can see that something is unfinished, they feel pulled to finish it, even if they realize that's what it's trying to do. Now, the research is a little nuanced here and worth knowing. A peer-reviewed study out of the University of Michigan found that progress indicators reduce abandonment, but only when the early progress feels fast. When the bar moves slowly at first, it backfires. The practical implication? Front-load the easy wins in your onboarding or upgrade flow. Make the first few steps easy so they feel quick, so the incomplete state pulls buyers forward instead of discouraging them. Build the bar and show the gap. Make it feel winnable from the start, because an open loop your buyer believes they can close is a buyer who keeps coming back. The Zeigarnik Effect is hiding in plain sight. It's running every time Netflix autoplays, every time a creator says, but first, every time a great subject line leaves a question unanswered. The brain doesn't forget what it hasn't finished. Make sure what it can't forget is you, your marketing move.